We are looking at table principle number 6. And as we have with the last 5 principles, we're asking the same question. How can we intentionally grow, protect, and represent a culture of good, a culture that people want to come to, they want to hang out in, and they want to bring their best, and do that by design and not by default? So as we look at principle number 6, this is what it is. If it's about them, they're at the table or represented well. What I mean by that is that when we're making decisions, the people that that decision impacts, we take the time to think about how can we get input and insight from them, or at least represented input and insight from them, so that we're making a decision with them in mind. Have you ever been invited to a meeting where your opinion has been asked? They want your insight, they want your ideas. And yet as the meeting continues, you begin to realize the decision's already been made. The train's already left. You end up leaving that meeting oftentimes feeling discouraged, angry, frustrated, and maybe even manipulated. And that wasn't necessarily the intention of those that were hosting that meeting. But that was the outcome, that was the consequence of not having people represented or at the table when that decision was being discussed at the beginning. You see, this principle is really rooted in trust. Not just trust that your leaders are going to do the best by you, but it's the trust that leaders can have in their team members, that they know their jobs best, and that by asking them how this decision might impact their work is going to actually set up the organization to avoid unintended consequences and, quite honestly, come up with some amazing solutions. This principle saves money and it saves morale, but it also takes time and intention. We need to think creatively sometimes in some of our different organizations of how are we going to get meaningful input and insight that can help contribute to making this decision. But I will tell you, it is never a waste of resources to do that. It will always be a win when we can say with authenticity and with being genuine that we did speak to those that are impacted by this, and we're grateful we did, because we came up with answers for this decision that we couldn't have done on our own. So let's look at some culture questions to explore this a little bit more. Self-reflection or with your team. What decision do you need to make that is going to directly impact other people and how they do their work? How are you, or could you, connect with them to be able to get their ideas for for the impact in terms of that decision? So how are you, or how could you reach out to ask for their insight or input in this decision? And if you aren't sure how to answer that, please take the time to check out with other colleagues or peers that are doing this kind of work, because they may have ideas that you haven't thought about on how to connect with folks. A third question is, when have you made a train's already left decision? And how did that work out for you? Because we need to learn from those experiences as well. But also I want to ask you, when have you made a decision where you have said, I need your input, you're important, you matter, your insights are going to impact this decision? And how did that play out for you? As individuals, again, and as teams, we get to influence how decisions are being made. We get to make decisions on how engaged the employees that are affected and impacted by the decisions that we made, in terms of how we are asking them to engage in the process. So if it's about them, they're at the table, or they're represented well.